4 undercover agents, 4 of the most dangerous motorcycle clubs on the planet. Pagans, Mongols, Vagos, and the Hells Angels all felt the wrath, and every one of these men got so deep inside, they were one mistake away from getting their TV turned off. Let's get into it. We run the night, we run the night, run. Big shout to the Ghosts and the Ghost Sets. I'm Sos the Ghost. This is Demons Rowe. We're going to talk about 4 people that literally held a brother's baby one day and then turned around and took them away from their baby for the rest of its life, literally in real life. Let's talk about the Pagans MC. In 2009, ATF agent Ken Croke didn't want to just arrest bikers. He wanted to dismantle a Big 4 outlaw motorcycle club that felt it was impossible to infiltrate. The Pagans MC. To get in, Ken Croke named himself Slam. He didn't just wear a leather vest, he built a 2-year lie. He spent every night in dive bars, survived brutal prospecting rituals, and proved his loyalty by acting like a ruthless debt collector. So remember, right here, he's admittedly saying that he committed crimes himself. They always do it, but then the club are the bad guys. If you notice, this is a trend. His in was the Long Island chapter where he played the part of a disgruntled vet with a short fuse. Once Ken Croke, known as Slam, was behind the blue wave curtain, and if you don't know what the blue wave is, it's a slang for the Pagans MC. He said the reality was darker than the ATF ever imagined. He didn't just find guys who like motorcycles. He found a sophisticated criminal enterprise. He discovered the Pagans were stockpiling enough firepower to start a war. Which, if we're keeping it real, what country do we live in? Oh, America. Do we have a Second Amendment in this country? I know dudes that personally own more guns than clubs. So really, what are we talking about here? So Croke claims they bought all these guns for a total war with their rivals, the Hells Angels. So before they had any problems with the Hells Angels, none of them owned guns. He sat in church meetings, the club's private strategy sessions, and said that they plotted hits and managed multi-state distribution rings for meth and coke. He said there was a pagan tax where local chapters were shaken down for cash to fund the mother club's illegal fees and luxury lifestyles. Now, if you know anything about clubs, it's not a pagan tax. It's not a shakedown. Every club kicks back to the mother club at one point or another. After 2 years of living a double life, Croke finally gave the signal. In 2011, the hammer dropped. Because of his testimony and wiretaps, the ATF swept up 20 high-ranking members. The biggest fish, Dennis Rooster Katona, the national president of the Pagans. Croke also took down Augustine Augie Alba, a major leader in the Long Island chapter. They weren't just charged with drug running, it was full RICO indictment, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and weapons trafficking. And here's the part they don't tell you about undercover work. Ken Croke didn't just walk away from the Pagans. He walked away from a life that he lived for 2 years. Because when you go that deep, you're not pretending anymore. You're shaking hands with guys who would have took you off the planet if they knew who you really were. They trusted him. They brought him into something most people would never even get close to. And the whole time, he was building a case that would take them from their families. Think about that when you want to join a motorcycle club. Now let's talk about the Vagos MC and an infiltrator named George Rowe. Now this guy wasn't an alphabet agent with a badge in his pocket from day one. This is a man that had a troubled past in the streets of Hemet, California. And usually that's how it works, because they want to get a lighter sentence for something that they did, so they send other people up the river. He was a former meth cook, Dirty George. He went on 100% suicide mission. He reached out to the ATF and told them, I'm going in. For 3 years, George lived the life. He wasn't just a fly on the wall. He was putting in work, doing the same things that he blames the club for later on. And they never seem to see it as a crime when they're the ones putting in the work. It's just a job at that point. He started as a hang-around, then a prospect, and then he eventually patched in as Big George. Imagine the mental gymnastics. This man is sitting in church, drinking beers with the brothers, while he's got a wiretap to his chest, and the feds are parked down the block, listening to every word. He climbed the ladder all the way to treasurer. Think about it. In an outlaw club, the treasurer sees the books, the dues, everything that's going on. He had access and keys to the entire kingdom. While the club thought he was a loyal soldier, George was building Operation 22 Green. When the hammer finally dropped in 2006, it wasn't just a knock at the door. It was a full-blown earthquake. 700 agents hit 72 locations at the same damn time. They scooped up 42 members, including high-ranking leadership. But here's the cold part about the game. George had a fiance who was pregnant at the time. She didn't know anything about this. One day he's a Vago, the next day he's whisked away by the marshals in Witsec. He traded his patch for a new name and a life in the shadows. And of course, he wrote a book, Gods of Mischief. They always write a book and profit off of their noble works. You notice that? This is a masterclass on how one man with a grudge can try to dismantle a whole organization from the inside out. But the truth is, the Vagos MC are stronger today than they ever were. So what was really done by this man but get a book published? Seems like it's the same with all the clubs. Now let's talk about the Mongols MC and the infiltrator named William McQueen. Today we're gonna peel back the layers on a story that is pure grease. We're talking about the black and white nation, the Mongols MC, the man who did the unthinkable. He didn't just hang around, he didn't just prospect, he patched in and sat at the table. And when you're on the payroll for the feds or the ATF, you got a lot of time on your hands so you can grow really fast. And we're talking about Billy Queen. Now look, the Mongols are known for being one of the tightest, most hard to crack organizations on the planet. They don't just open the door for anyone. But in 1998, this ATF agent created a ghost. He became Billy St. John, a bearded, long-haired outlaw who looked like he'd been raised on road grime and cheap beer. This man did not just play the part, he lived it for 28 months. He wasn't just a fly on the wall. He was putting in work. He was guarding the bikes, doing the runs, and taking the heat until he earned that center patch in the San Fernando Valley chapter. But he didn't stop there. Billy was so deep in the paint, the brothers voted him in as the secretary/treasurer. Think about that. In the 1% world, having access to all the books and the files, he knows everything that's going on, the dues, the debt, exactly where the bodies are buried. Not saying that they, are doing that, but you know what I mean. It's a figure of speech. He had the keys to the entire kingdom. For over 2 years, Billy was recording every move, every church meeting, every deal, every conversation about alleged hits. He had a wiretap to his chest while he was drinking beers with men who would have ended him in a heartbeat if they knew that he had that on. One pat down, one suspicious brother, and Billy Queen would have been a memory. In 2000, everything went down. 54 Mongols went down in a massive RICO sweep that shook the black and white nation to its core. Billy walked away and dropped a book, Under and Alone, telling the world how he dismantled them from the inside. But here's the cold reality of life. Billy Queen may have won the legal battle on that day, but he's been looking over his shoulder for over 20 years. You could take off the vest, but you can't outrun the ghost of what you did. The Mongols are still out there. They're still riding and growing every day. And you better believe. And the screening process got a whole lot stricter after Billy St. John. Now let's talk about the Hells Angels, and we're talking about the biggest fish in the pond. You just don't walk up to the red and white and become a member. You don't just walk up to the red and white and ask for a vest. You gotta be vetted and you gotta be feared. In 2001, the Fed sent in J. Dobyns, known on the bricks as J Bird. Check the play. The ATF knew that they couldn't knock on the door. So what they did was set up a puppet club called the Solo Angeles, a real club from Mexico, and planted J Bird right in the middle of it. He spent 2 years living a double life, acting as a high-level gun runner and debt collector. He was so deep into the paint, he even had a female agent playing his old lady just to keep the heat off his back. I wonder if he got him some in that whole exchange. I don't know. But the moment that sealed his fate, it was a stage hit. To prove he was a stone cold killer, Jaybird acted like he murdered a rival Mongols MC member. He used a fellow agent, covered him in stage blood and brains, and took Polaroids of the body. He brought these photos to the Hells Angels leadership as a trophy. It worked. Jaybird became one of the first lawmen in history to ever be patched in as a full patch member of the Skull Valley Charter. Now, there's a lot of angels that say he never was a club member. That right there, that's debatable. He was sitting at the table voting on club business. This is what he says, while his wire was catching every word. When Operation Black Biscuit finally went live, it resulted in 36 indictments for murder and racketeering. Jaybird walked away with the patch, but he paid for it in blood. After the case, the feds left him out to dry, while the Aryan Brotherhood and the club put a green light on his head. Pause. He wrote it all down in a book called No Angel. But in the larger scheme, the Hells Angels are bigger now than they ever been. So what did it really do in the long run? Maybe just a bump in the road. Let me know what you think about this. In my opinion, with the Epstein list and the actual monsters walking around, how does law enforcement keep up this image of protecting and serving when they go after motorcycle clubs that commit crimes so small on a larger scope? They can't even shut chapters down. Like, they don't even shut whole chapters down, let alone a whole club. If they were really this dangerous, don't you think they would be off the streets already? Think about it. It's like these clubs are so lawless and so dangerous. Why isn't the whole club in prison? The answer is pretty simple if you think about it. They're not as bad as the ATF would lead you to believe. In my opinion, the clubs are scapegoats to make people feel like there's some type of justice being served. While they do the most unspeakable acts involving little ones, they literally walk past these vermin to run big RICO cases on clubs. Just my point of view. Let me know what you think, and thank you for tuning in to Demons Row TV, the holy grail of MC culture. Like, subscribe, and comment. And oh yeah, we ghosting, baby.
Oh.